Continuing Pliny the Elder's Natural History, Book 2. This is part 3, I think. I will try to read chapters 7 through 10, where he talks about eclipses. Primum Latine. Capita septima. Quipe manifestum est solem interventu lunae occultare, lunamque terrae objectu, ac vices redi, eostem solis, radios luna interpositu, suo auferente terraque lunae. Hac subieunde repentinas obduci terrae, tenebras rusumque ilius umbra sidus hebitari, neque aliud esse noctem, quam terrae umbram, figuram autem umbrae similem metae ac turbini inverso. Quando mucrone tantum ingruat, neque lunae excedat altitudinem, quoniam nullum aliud sidus, eodem mudo obscuretur, et talis figura semper in mucronem deficiat. Spatio quidem consumi umbras indicio sunt volucrem, prae alti volatus. Ergo confinium illis est aeris terminus, initiumque aeteris. Supra lunam pura omnia ac diuturnae lucis plena, a nobis autem per noctem cernuntur sidera ut reliqua lumina in tenebris. Et propter has causas nocturno tempore deficit luna. Stati autem atque menstrui non sunt, utrique defectus. Propter obliquitatem signiferi lunaeque multi vagos, ut dictum est flexus, non semper in scripulis partium congruente siderum motu. Capita 8. Haec ratio mortales animos subducit in caelum, ac velutinde contemplantibus trium maximarum rerum naturae partium magnitudinem deticit. Non posset quipe totus sol adimi terris intercedente luna, si terra maior esset quam luna. Certior ex utraque vastita solis aperietur, ut non sit necesse amplitudinem eius oculorum argumentis, atque conjectura animi scrutari. Immensum esse, quia arborum in limitibus porrectarum in quod libet passum milia umbras paribus iaciat intervallis tamquam toto spatio medius, et quia per aequinoctium omnibus in meridiana plaga habitantibus simul fiat a vertige, item quia circa solstitatiam circulum habiantium meridie ad septentrionem umbrae cadant. Ortubero ad occasum, quae fieri nullo modo possent, nisi multo quam terra maior esset. Et quod montem idam ex oriens latitudine exsuperet, dextra laevaeque large amplectens, praesertim tanto discretus intervallo. Defectus lunae magnitudinem eius haud dubia ratione declarat, sicut terrae parvitatem ipse deficiens. Namque cum sint tres umbrarum figurae, constetque si par lumini sit materia quae iaceat. Umbram columnae effigie iaci nec habere finem, si vero maior materia quam lumen, turbinis recti, ut sit immum eius angustissimum, et simili modo infinita longitudo, si minor materia quam lux, metae existere effigiem in cacuminis finem desinentem. Talemque cerni umbram deficiente luna pallam sit, fit, ut nulla amplius relinquatur, dubitatio solem superare magnitudinem terrae. Id quidem et tacitis naturae ipsius indiciis, cur enim partitis vicibus anni brumalis abscedit, et noctium opacitate terras reficiat. Exus duros haud dubie, et siquoque exurens quadam in parte, tanta magnitudo est. Capita 9. Et rationem quidem defectus utriusque primus Romani generis in vulgum extulit Sulpicius Gallus, qui consul cum Marco Marcello fuit, sed tum tribunus militum. So licitudine exercitu liberato pridie quam Perseus rex superatus a Paulo est in concionem ab imperatore productus, ad praedicendam eclipsim. Mox et composito volumine. Apud Graecos autem investigavit primus omnium tales Milesius, Olympiades quadraginta octo anno quarto praedicto solis defectu, qui aliate rege factus est, urbis conditae anno centum septimo. Septemgento septemgento. Post eos utriusque sideris cursum in sexgentos annos praececinit Hipparchus, menses gentium diesque, et horas ac situs locorum et visus populorum complexus. Aevo teste haud aliquo modo quam consiliorum naturae particeps, viri ingentes, supraque mortalium naturam, tantorum numinum lege deprehensa et misera hominum mente metu soluta, in defectibus siderum scelera aut mortem aliquam pavente, quo in metu fuisse stesicori et pindari vatum sublimia ora pallam est de liquio solis. Aut in lunae veneficia arguente mortalitate, et ab id crepitu di sono auxiliante, quo pavore ignaros causis nicias attenentium imperator veritus classem portu educere opus eorum ad flixit. Macti ingenio este, caeli interpretes rerumque naturae capaces, argumenti repertores, quos deos hominesque vicistis. Quis enim haec cernens et stato siderum, quoniam ita appellare placuit labores non suae necessitati mortales genitos ignoscat. Nunc confessa de iistem breviter atque capitulatim attingam ratione ad modum necessariis locis strictimque redita, nam neque instituti operis talis argumentatio est, neque omnium rerum afferri posse causas minus mirum est quam constare in aliquis. Capita 10. Defectus duocentesimo viginti tribus mensibus redire in suos orbis certum est. Solis defectus non nisi novissima primave fieri luna, quod vocant coetum lunae autem non nisi plena, semperque citra quam proxime fuerint. Omnibus autem annis fieri utriusque sideris, defectus statis diebus horisque sub terra. Nec tamen cum superne fiant, ubique cerni, aliquanto propter nubila, saepius globo terrae obstante convexitatibus mundi. Intraducentos annos Hipparchi sagacitate compertum est, et lunae defectum aliquanto quinto mense a priore fieri. Solis vero septimo, eondem bis intriginta diebus super terras occultari. Sed ab aliis atque aliis, hoc cerni, quaeque sunt in hoc miraculo maxime mira, cum conveniant umbra terrae lunam habitari. Nunc ab occasus parte hoc ei accidere, nunc ab exortus, et quadam ratione cum solis exortu umbra illa erbetatrix sub terra esse debeat. Semel iam acciderit, ut in occasu luna deficeret, utroque super terram conspicuo sidere. Nam ut decima quintus diebus utrumque sidus quaereretur et nostro aevo accidit imperatoribus Vespasianus patre trio filio iterum consilibus. It is in fact obvious that the sun is hidden by the passage across it of the moon, and the moon by the interposition of the earth, and that they retaliate on one another, the same rays of the sun being taken away from the earth by the moon, intervening and from the moon by the earth. At the transit of the former, a sudden shadow passes over the earth, and in return the shadow of the latter dims the heavenly body, the moon, and the darkness is merely the earth's shadow. But the shape of that shadow is conical, resembling a spinning top upside down, as it impinges only with its point and does not go beyond the altitude of the moon, because no other star is obscured in the same way, and a conical figure always tapers off into a point. That shadows are made to disappear by distance is proved when birds fly to extreme heights. Consequently, the frontier between the moon and the other heavenly bodies is at the point where the air ends and the aether begins. All the space above the moon is clear and filled with continual light, but to us the stars are visible through the night in the same way as other lights in shadows. And these are the reasons why the moon wanes in the night time, but both of her wanings are irregular and not monthly, because of the slant of the zodiac and the widely varying curves of the moon's course, as has been stated, the motion of the heavenly bodies not always tallying in minute fractional quantities. Chapter 8. This theory leads mortal minds upward to the heaven, and discloses to their observation from that height, as it were, the greatness of the three greatest parts of the universe. Clearly, it would not be possible for the whole of the sun to be eclipsed from the earth by the passage of the moon between them, if the earth were larger than the moon. The vast size of the sun will be shown with the more certainty from the two bodies, so that there is no need to investigate its size by the evidence of the eyes and by logical inference, arguing that it is immeasurably large for the following reasons. The shadow that it throws of rows of trees along the bulks of fields are at equal distances apart for ever so many miles, just as if over the whole space the sun were in the center. During the equinoxes, it reaches the vertical simultaneously for all the inhabitants of the southern region. The shadows of the people living around the Tropic of Cancer fall northward at midday, but westward at sunrise, which could not happen unless the sun were much larger than the earth. When it is rising, its breadth exceeds Mount Ida, overlapping it widely right and left, and that though it is separated from it by so great a distance. The eclipse of the moon supplies indubitable proof of the size of the sun, just as the sun itself, when it suffers eclipses, proves the smallness of the earth. For shadows are of three shapes, and it is clear that if the solid object that throws a shadow is equal in area to the shaft of light, the shadow projected is shaped like a pillar and is of infinite length. But if the solid body is larger than the light, the shadow has the shape of an upright spinning top, so that it is the narrowest at the bottom and infinite in length, as in the former case, while if the solid is smaller than the light, the result is the figure of a cone narrowing down to an end in a point, and this is the nature of the shadow observed during an eclipse of the moon. Hence, it is proved without any further possibility of doubt remaining that the sun exceeds the earth's size. Indeed, this is also proved by the silent testimony of nature herself. For why, in the division of the turns of the year, does the winter sun retire, so as to refresh the earth with the darkness of the nights, when otherwise it would unquestionably scorch up the earth, and even as it does so in a certain part, so great is its magnitude. Chapter 9. The first person of Roman nationality who published an explanation of both kinds of eclipse was Sulpicius Gallus, the colleague in the consulship of Marcus Marcellus, but at the same time military tribune, who delivered the army from fear when on the day before the defeat of King Perseus by Paulus, he was brought before an assembly by the commander-in-chief to foretell an eclipse, and later also by writing a treatise. The original discovery was made in Greece by Thales of Miletus, who in the 4th year of the 48th Olympiad, that is 585 BCE, foretold the eclipse of the sun that occurred in the reign of Aliatis, in the 170th year after the foundation of Rome. After their time, the courses of both stars for 600 years were prophesied by Hipparchus, whose work embraced the calendar of the nations and the situations of places and aspects of the people. His method being, on the evidence of his contemporaries, none other than full partnership in the designs of nature. O mighty heroes of loftier than mortal estate, who have discovered the law of those great divinities, and released the miserable mind of man from fear. Mortality dreading, as it did in eclipses of the stars, crimes, or death of some sort, those sublime singers, the bards Stesichorus and Pindar, clearly felt this fear owing to an eclipse of the sun. Or in the dying of the moon, inferring that she was poisoned, and consequently coming to her end, with a noisy clattering of cymbals. This alarm caused the Athenian general Nicias, in his ignorance of the cause, to be afraid to lead his fleet out of harbor, so destroying the Athenians' resources. All hail to your genius, ye that interpret the heaven and grasp the facts of nature, discoverers of a theory whereby you have vanquished gods and men. For who, beholding these truths and the regularity of the stars' periods of trouble, for so it has pleased you to call them, who would not forgive his own destiny for the generation of mortals? And now I will briefly and summarily touch on facts that are admitted about the same matters, giving an account of them only at necessary points and in a cursory manner, because such theorizing does not form part of the task that I have set in hand, and also it is less surprising that explanations cannot be produced for all the facts than that agreement has been reached on some of them. Chapter 10. On the 11-year eclipse cycle. It is certain that eclipses recur in cycles of 223 months. Eclipses of the sun only when the moon is at her last or first phase. This is called their conjugation. And eclipses of the moon only when at full moon, and always within the period of their last occurrence. But that yearly, at fixed days and hours, eclipses of either star occur below the earth, and that even when they occur above, they are not visible everywhere, sometimes owing to clouds, but more often because the earth's globe stands in the way of the world's curvature. Less than 200 years ago, the penetration of Hipparchus discovered that an eclipse of the moon also sometimes occurs 4 months after the one before, and an eclipse of the sun 6 months, and that the latter, when above the earth, is hidden twice in 30 days. But that this eclipse is visible to different nations, and the most remarkable features of this remarkable occurrence, that when it comes about that the moon is obscured to the shadow of the earth, this sometimes happens to it from the west side, and sometimes from the east. And he also discovered for what exact reason, although the shadow causing the eclipse must from sunrise onward be below the earth, it happened once in the past that the moon was eclipsed in the west, while both luminaries were visible above the earth. For the eclipse of both sun and moon within 15 days of each other has occurred even in our time, in the year of the third consulship of the elder Emperor Vespasian, and the second consulship of the younger.